sometimes in life, you just gotta face the facts. And this is a fact right now. And don't laugh, I'm not done the intro. Yeah. This is just an Aridonis podcast. And I'm Aridonis. And this is Face the Music. And they're just getting started. I mean, you're not just getting started at all. You've been doing this for like a couple years now, but you're just getting started to doing what you actually want to do.
Correct.
Yeah? All right. So we got Keely and Nav. And what's up? How was your weekend?
It was busy. It was the best kind of busy, though.
Yeah.
Nice.
We just got back from our first ever festival stage at Uptown Live in New West, so that was fun as frick. We got to book all of our insanely talented friends.
Neato.
Who are insanely talented musicians.
Fantastic. And so, like, how long did it take to put something like that together?
I think we were given the opportunity 2 months ago, April, right?
April. Yeah.
April is when we were told that there's a possibility you might be getting a stage at Uptown, and then I was in Toronto while this was happening, and Keely was putting this together.
Right.
She calls me out of nowhere, being like, "Holy shit! Like, we have the opportunity to make this happen." I was like, "Okay, fine, let's make it happen."
Right.
And then like a week later, we were
Fine, I guess let's make it happen.
Yeah.
No,
And
we were
then
super excited.
We were super excited. Then a week later, we started booking everyone. We had most of the details really just sort of ironed out, just because me and Keely work full-time jobs.
Right.
So when it comes to Face, we really just like to plan stuff as
quickly
as possible and long before the event, just because we know that things take time.
Right.
But more or less we were done booking everything within the first month, and then we started marketing the event a month after.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys, because you started pretty shortly before the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so in terms
2019.
of like, yeah, and so in terms of like what were your original intentions in 2019 of like, here's what we're gonna do and how long it's gonna take?
Oh boy, let me tell you.
More or less, what we're doing now is what we wanted to do in 2019.
Right.
But you know, it
didn't go at all to plan.
It did not go to plan as well. We didn't realize that how hard it was to book a space, first of all. So we were sending all these proposals to spaces in the latter end of 2019 when we decided we wanted to do this. And then we just kept getting rejected after time, and that's just honestly goes to the city of Vancouver being at fault because no one likes music or art or culture in their spaces.
We were trying to pull off a so-far style thing by turning spaces that aren't intended for music into music venues to start, because our original goal was to put together a couple of smaller showcases and then cap off 2020 with a huge launch event with some big bands and a big venue, just to kind of show what we're about. And then all of that kind of fizzled out after a couple of things where it finally looked like things were going to line up. We were going to get a venue in place for one of these smaller shows, and then it got flipped on us. And then we finally had something for this launch, and we were like, okay, let's just focus full throttle into everything. And that was March 2020. So here we were with this grand plan, super excited about everything, starting to get our bands in order, venues lined up, and then boom, pandemic.
Right.
And then we were still very much, you know, like, this is a really good break for us, and just sort of like come back to the drawing board. Like, everything was planned, and we were under the impression that we'd get something like this done in the summer.
Yeah.
That didn't happen.
Of course, yeah.
And then 6 months turned into a year, and a year turned into 2 years. Then I guess at the end of 2020, we had decided that, like, this is not going anywhere for a long time.
After your like first event.
Yeah.
Do you know how much it took out of us?
Oh.
Like, in terms of our mental health, having to reschedule all of these things.
Yeah.
And then
so many times over
and over again, we were like, you know what, let's just put this on hold and see what happens in the long term. So we didn't really think about Face for a whole year.
Yeah.
And then we started having conversations with people about like the same thing they were dealing with. And more or less everyone was tired of live streaming. They were tired of recording performances, and they had more or less done the same thing we did and thought they could just pick it up whenever things would go back to normal. And, as quickly as stuff went away, it seems like there was no, what's it called?
Delay.
There was no delay.
Yeah.
Things came just as quickly.
Oh, yeah.
When we were starting to plan these events again, we basically had zero time, and me and Keely had graduated, and we had started full-time jobs. So it all became about how we can make Face fit into our lives, and also we're so passionate about music, we didn't want to abandon it. So we're trying to do things at a wider scale. Just because we had some money come in during the pandemic, we were trying to do Face through other services like marketing and whatnot. And now we're here planning these bigger events. But again, we just have no time. But, this is what we love to do. And we're trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I think something we realized too in the midst of all this was, okay, events aren't coming back anytime soon. Everyone's sick of live streaming. What can we do that's different? Because the feedback that we got from trying to do stuff at the beginning and we kept getting turned away was no one knew who the F we are.
Yeah.
No one, we were like, who are you?
Yeah.
Why should I trust you?
Yeah, of course.
So we tried to think, okay, well, how can we put this on hold but not put this on hold? Because if we indefinitely put it on hold, people are going to keep going back to it. We don't know who you are. If someone doesn't know who you are, then next person doesn't know who you are, and then it keeps going. It's an infinite loop. So
it's like the same problem that bands deal with.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, why should we trust you? What kind of proof do you have? Well, we've got no social proof. We're brand new in this industry in this capacity.
Yeah.
So, like...
Not brand new individually.
In this capacity is what
not brand new individually, because we had been working with the music industry in this world. We had known all these people more or less.
Right.
They knew we were marketing and PR professionals and event specialists. They just didn't know what we could do together.
Yeah.
They also, I don't even think they necessarily knew me as that so much as they knew me because I'd played in so many bands, and I'm a session bass player, and I was in bands before and stuff like that. And I was a musician. Now I was a concert photographer and fanatic and marketer extraordinaire. So we'd been around for a long time, but not in this sense and in this regard. So what we kind of did was we were like, okay, how can we take our talent and our skill and like something that we'd originally decided was going to be a minuscule part of this business, which was PR and marketing, and turn that into something that we can use to help people in the meantime so that we can at least get our name out there.
Right.
Because that was the struggle and that was the roadblock that we kept hitting. So I guess in the middle of the pandemic, in the meantime, what we were doing is we were helping people with stuff like EPKs and marketing campaigns for single releases, video releases. We were doing all that just to try and continue to get our names out there.
Yeah.
But this is what we love to do. This is what the original plan was. This is what we were born to do. So now we've got our IRSSS fundraiser in the pocket. We've got
which was a lot of fun.
Oh,
Which was a lot of fun.
We had a really killer drummer in one of the bands come out and play. His name was Aridonis.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought you were talking about the guy from Earth Tones. That dude's a motherfucker.
He was great too. Yeah. You were both amazing.
Everyone was.
I mean,
amazing.
you really saved our ass with the gear too. You helped a lot with that.
I feel like space. Like when anyone talks about their organization, they talk about how special it is. I think the biggest defining fact or thing about Face the Music is that it's not really just us. We have such a community of musicians, people who are friends and family at this point, who support us so much that they're willing to drop everything, especially with the fundraiser that, not the fundraiser, sorry, the Uptown Showcase is that one of our bands dropped last minute. And we freaked out for like 5 minutes, and then we turned to our network of friends, and then I messaged Benjamin Millman, and I asked him, like, hey, are you and Maya free to play in our closing slot? He's like, no, Maya's going to be away. And then he's like, wait, let me make this work. I'm pretty sure like there's something that we can come up with. So
because he plays with so many different projects.
So many projects. So he suggested Bungalow, which is his new band, super group.
Insane.
Sane. Yeah. And we were like, are you free for this time slot? And he's like, no. And then he's like, do you mind shifting stuff? So like, we'd love to help you out. in one way or another. So we ended up just pushing a few of our acts back and then giving them the afternoon slot.
Royal Oak really came through on that too. Yeah. It's exactly what you're saying about like a community and a network of friends. Is I was able to text Brayson immediately and be like, hey, so here's the situation. This band can only play this time slot. Any chance you guys can move to this one? And they were like, absolutely. And I was like, I love you.
I mean, it's not just the festival that you get, like our friends came to help out. It was the IRSS benefit too. You lent all of your gear. Sammy lent all of his gear. You guys were there to support in whatever way we can, and it just goes to show that our organization is starting to feel like a grassroots organization in the sense that it's not just us. It's all of our friends who want to help us.
We always wanted this to be community built and community lending too. Like it was made to be diverse. With musical background, with artist background, everything about it, we wanted to bring diverse communities together. We want to revitalize Vancouver's music scene. So just seeing people like believe in what we do enough to come out and show support and help us out in this way has just been so nice.
Yeah. Well, and that's like the super common theme that I've noticed since I've started like trying to talk to somebody from the Vancouver scene every weekend. It's not like, this is what I do well, and here's what it is. It's like, here's what all my friends have done for me, right? Like, here's how here's how I've taken what I can do and mixed it together with who my friends are and made that into a thing, you know?
I feel like people don't realize how small Vancouver really is. It's a very small city, but we're considered to be this large city. But in fact, it's a really small town, and our music scene's quite small. There's only a handful of venues. There's only a handful of opportunities. And you hit that glass ceiling really fast in a city like this. But, you know, it's that network you build and that circle of friends you build where new music projects are started, new music companies are being developed, new ideas are being created. It's because you built this solid network of people who more or less do the same thing and want to help you out by giving their time and resources because we're all in this together, not to sound cliche, but like that's what's really keeping me here is that network I've built, and not just of people I know, but as true friends, like I was saying, family. And we're all more or less here to support each other in whatever way we can.
Even when the city puts up so many roadblocks, it's the people that bring it all back.
No, it's and that's kind of the thing is it's so much less about like what can the establishment do to help us, or how can we weave in with it, and it's more, it seems to be more and more like how do we get around
how do we get around this all together? Like
exactly.
It's where are the loopholes?
You know, people talk about gatekeeping in Vancouver a lot, and I've found that's just not my experience in the music scene. There's not many, especially I guess the new music scene, our music musicians coming in, this new generation coming in, is that we're sort of not gatekeeping anything because we know how hard it is to thrive in the city considering how expensive it is. And we're all here to more or less help each other out or get through these hurdles together. Like when it comes to grant processes and grant applications, it's super competitive, but not once have I seen friends pit against each other. They're like, this is how I made my grant application stronger, so you should do the same thing. Here's what's worked for me. You should do this. Because at the end of the day, we all want to see each other succeed.
Well, and that's hold on, my roommates are being weird. Okay, it's over. Every now and then, one of them will make a shrieking noise, but, you know.
Sounds normal to me.
We are in East Van. Sometimes the sound's coming from inside the house. But and that's totally true. It's a very like when you're in the sort of when you're outside of the like face-to-face part of it, it can feel very competitive because there's so few opportunities and there's so few just ways for you to even do what you want to do. It whether it be like going through like a booking agent, or trying to like take on the huge financial hurdle of booking events yourself, or working with somebody like you guys, like there's only so many slots, you know, and grant applications, another great example, you know. And yeah, it's true. Like if you reach out to somebody and be like, hey, do you think you could help me out with this? It's, you know, the answer's gonna be yes. You know, then the trick, I think, for a lot of people is if you feel like you're on the outside, you just gotta walk in.
You gotta walk in. You gotta make yourself known to people. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many people I've met through people. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm definitely a person who's always set my own limitations because I was like scared to approach new people.
Of course, yeah.
And that's something that I've always had to push past, but knowing people has been so instrumental. I think you had Adrian Fitzpatrick on an episode a while back, and I think you talked about how Adrian knows everyone, and I've definitely talked to him about this before too, but it's true because he's the reason why I know so many of the people that I know now. And him, Royal Oak, I met so many people in this scene because I met them, and then they were friends with so-and-so who was friends with so-and-so. I met Adrian through Royal Oak because he played a show with his old band Belcara at a Royal Oak show that I was also playing. And I think I was telling Austin that last night. I was like, so technically I met most of the people that I know through you because I met Adrian through you guys, and then Adrian's introduced me to so-and-so and so-and-so, and sorry.
Yeah, you took the more organic approach. I am a serial, like, slip into the DMs type of person.
Right,
That's how we met. I, you know, when I was first starting to really dip my foot into the scene, Instagram was, like, my place of, like, getting to know musicians in the city. Town Square. I was literally, like, slipping into people's DMs, being like, hey, I love what you're doing. I'd love to take you out for a coffee and, like, let's talk about your music career, right?
Right.
So I really did use Instagram as a way to sort of connect with musicians, and that's sort of how I built my network of musicians. Keely's like, oh, you follow this person, I follow this person. And Keely was like, oh, how do you know so many people? I'm like, I literally solicit myself. and like, once I, like, my whole thing is, like, once I get into someone's life, like, it's impossible to get rid of me.
Right.
And now she solicits me too.
Right.
And now it's like the same thing on LinkedIn because now I'm starting to expand my professional network of like music business people.
Right.
Now I do the same thing on LinkedIn where I just like saw it as like this weird thing that people were doing. Yeah. And then I started to realize, oh shit, this actually works.
Huh.
It was only like super coincidental that we found out we were also in the same program at school.
Yeah.
Right.
And that we'd actually had a class before but never really met.
Yeah. Right. No, it's like a very like the way our paths connected. We were like always living 5 minutes away from each other. Went to the same school, same program. And never crossed paths until I fucking DM'd her on Instagram.
But if you want to talk about an isolating place to be, the top of the Burnaby Mountain is definitely not somewhere that I went to meet people. Though. No. Yeah. So it's weird, but it's also kind of fair that we never met before, just because SFU, if you go there, is not necessarily one of those places that you stick around after for the extracurriculars.
No.
So.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's kind of like. You don't really see, it's like the like girl next door kind of literal kind of story where you're like, you're not really ready to see it until the universe is deemed you ready, you know?
True.
No, that's how I'm a very spiritual person, and I tend to think that, you know, like, Keely's not the only example. There have been so many people in my life that have been literally minutes outside of me.
Yeah. And
we have all shared more or less the same life experiences. But I just happen to encounter them in a point where in my life I'm ready to meet them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think about like I used to work for big box music store.
Yeah.
And then like you mentioned Sammy earlier. Like Sammy was just a customer of mine.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it seems like this guy knows a lot of people and does a lot of stuff, you know, like, but it's like, but what do I have, you know, to offer this guy? And then I one time he came in and he had his like whole like this like bullshit pedal board and I was like,
sorry Sammy.
It was garbage. It was horrible. It's not that it had like bad stuff. It was just like wired very like using like straight patch cables, you know, instead of angled patch cables, just a mess. And so I was just like, I was like, look, like, just leave this here at the store with me, you know, and like I sold him a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, leave this here, just come pick it back up tomorrow, and I just like pimped it, you know, and then I like gave it back to him, and then he was like, oh, okay, well you should come to my, like, I'm doing an event, you know, like it's like, it seems like you understand technology, why don't you come mix this show for me in North Van? And I went, and that's where I met met Ayla Tesler-Mabe, and she was like 17 at the time, and I was just like, holy shit, like who's this kid, you know? And it was this
as you do,
you know, and then yeah, exactly, and then after that, Sammy was like, oh, why don't you come to because I worked with Brayson, but I didn't like know Royal Oak very well until Sammy was like, well, Miles is drumming for this like live karaoke band thing at Miles's house, and I went and I sang "You Make My Dreams" by Hall & Oates for Sammy.
Yes,
and
good song.
Yeah, and then that's when Sammy was like, "Oh shit, like you can sing too." And then since then, that's how we like sort of formed a relationship. But it started with insane. You know, we were just like, we knew each other and like had met multiple times, and like, but it wasn't until it was like, oh, and then it opened up right just in time for this little window. It's like, oh, I have something that can help. Yeah. Please let me.
Speaking of, you guys should bring back those FP Gear Gab episodes. Those were sick.
Yeah, we're actually talking about that. I was just talking to Sammy this week about doing some stuff like that and just nerding out about gear in a more official capacity. It's gonna, because now that I'm like a full-time freelancer, it's a little bit more available.
Let me pose you a question. How's your life sort of, because you went from working a full 9 to 5 to more or less being your own boss babe, if you will.
Boss babe, yeah.
How has your life been as a music freelancer?
I mean, it's I kind of like was like from like I've had like 2 or 3 occasions in my life where like really fucked up shit has happened, bad things, and that I look back on as like the best thing ever. Like I got like I weirdly look back on like when I was 16, I got cancer and had to take like a year off of high school, and then like I ended up being cured within like 8 months or so it wasn't that bad, but it was enough for me to like go like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go to school for IT, like maybe I should just do whatever I want, you know. And then that put me on the path to where I'm at now. And then the pandemic was kind of the second one of those where it was like I kind of took a layoff from work because I didn't want to be in a public space, and it was and I just started working from home and like really diving into more like producing projects and stuff like that. And then I was just like, I can just do this. And then and it was horrifying to take that leap and be like, I quit, you know, because I didn't like go part-time or anything. I just went cold turkey, and it was,
I know exactly when this happened.
Yeah, it was about 8 months ago now, and it was scary. But as soon as I opened up, I took that like 40-hour-a-week monkey off of my back, then it just the time slot started filling in, and you know, it helped that I spent a long time developing relationships with people that know that I don't suck, you know? And you know, and then just, you know, I'd start bumping into people at shows, and then they'd be like, oh, like, you know, have you got time for this? And, you know, 8 months ago I wouldn't have, you know, but now I do. And then it's, you know, and then it's just the snowball starts rolling, and
it all comes back to who knows who.
And it is that for sure, but it's also like making yourself available to get to know who, you know?
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, I would, if I was to give any advice, it'd be like, just fucking do it, you know? And it's like, if it fails, what, you're broke? Yeah. Like, I was broke. I'm still broke. I was broke 8 months ago. I was broke 2 years ago. You know, I'm always broke. Like, but it's like, now I'm like broke and sleep until noon, so.
Yeah. Can we pause? I just have to go to the bathroom quickly.
Of course. Yeah, figure that out. Final cut. All right. What were we talking about?
You lost me. ADHD.
Yeah.
It's easy as 1, 2, 3.
I think we were talking about Sammy and who knows right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you had to go to the bathroom, and literally I got a text from Sammy while you were in the bathroom.
You know, it's crazy how the universe works like that, right?
Yeah. And then he tried to call me. Says hi, by the way.
Says hi.
Yeah.
We say hi too.
Yeah.
We say hi too. Every now and then I'll just get a random text from Sammy, just like he's literally the sweetest person ever. Just to check in, he'll be like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And I'm like, "Sammy, thank you for thinking of me today." And then I'll just like tell him how I'm doing, and he's like,
"As you do,"
as one does, and I know it's. And it's not just him, it's everyone, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, every now and then I'll get, like, messages from people.
People are nice like that.
People are nice. Our friends are nice like that.
Yeah.
Musicians, I think, like I said, we're all in this together and we like to check in with each other.
Right.
This industry can be very tasking for people sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need to check in on your friends and ask them how they're doing.
Yeah, well, whenever you think about it, it's good to check in. But I have my podcast must-ask question. Speaking of ADHD things I always forget.
Yeah.
There's the phenomenon that I'm tracking where it's like Spotify tries to recommend you music, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Sometimes Spotify doesn't try to recommend you music and it just plays you something that it thinks you'll like, right? So you finish your playlist, you finish your album or whatever, and it's like, okay, here's what you like, and it usually starts with one song, and you makes your eyebrow go up, like, oh, this song? Like, you're playing me this song again?
Yeah.
And I call it the Spotify is Given Up song.
Yeah.
So what is your Spotify or whatever streaming platform you use? What is the Given Up
song?
Oh my
god. I'm gonna have to think about this one. You go first.
Oh my god. Every time I finish a playlist, Spotify always seems to recommend what does it recommend? It's a fucking anything by Tame Impala.
Ah, okay.
Like, I love Tame Impala.
Right.
But like
Do you know that it's just one guy?
Yeah, I do know it's just one guy. I know 2 years ago I would have just said I was such a snob.
Right.
But anything by Tame Impala on the current record is usually like, this girl's listened to everything.
Right. Yeah.
There's no more that we can give her, so let's just serve her. Was it The Less I Know, the Better?
Yeah, here's a treat. Yeah.
Here's a treat.
Okay. Probably for me, it's the 1975, just because I listen to the 1975 so much that it'll try and recommend me something, the 1975 or the 1975 adjacent at the end of my playlist, because I always just assume that it's still another song on my playlist.
Because it's probably,
because it's probably on one of my playlists. So
Right.
I go and I open my phone and I'm like, wait, hang on, why can't I like hit the backwards button, you know?
Okay.
Because when you run out of your playlist, they don't let you go back and...
Yeah.
Okay, what is your guys' relationship with Spotify?
I have a Spotify account that I pay for
Me too.
purely as a musician at this point, because it's ubiquitous and your Spotify monthly listeners are indicative of your success level, and being able to curate playlists and all that stuff
Necessary evil.
Is almost necessary, yeah. But my primary music listening lately has been YouTube music.
Okay.
Because I like YouTube as a platform. They seem to have, from the beginning, treated creators a little better than others.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Does Tidal still have the biggest payout?
No. So I was doing a bit of a research on, and I was talking to my friend Zach from the Zolas, and a few months ago we had coffee and we started talking about like the different music platforms there are. And he kept repping Tidal and how basically their payout was the highest. Mind you, it's not as saturated as Spotify or Apple Music.
Right.
Yeah.
So their payout is something like 10 cents per stream.
Wow.
But because more people caught on to that fact that the payout was higher, and the music discoverability on Tidal sucks ass, by the way.
Yeah.
But because people were catching on to the fact that you can make more money on Tidal, they actually started reducing their payouts too.
Oh.
And just within a few months, Zach had mentioned just last week that the payout is somewhat similar to what Apple Music pays their artists.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Gross.
like, that just goes to show that, like, it's, I think this conversation of, like, the time that we live in is that it's crazy and so great that artists have ownership of their own music. They don't have to go through labels anymore to release music or produce an image.
Yeah.
Like, you can create music in your bedroom and just release it the next day.
Right.
But then you're just caught in this cog of, like, almost 300,000 songs are being uploaded.
Hold on. Sorry. Your pack is cutting in and out.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. It might just be a reception thing, but let me just check your battery. Yeah, you look okay. Maybe just keep it out of your... Oh, keep it away from your phone. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. Sorry. 300,000.
Yeah. I'm going to say that. It's crazy that almost 300,000 songs are being uploaded to Spotify every day.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, music discoverability, people are listening to more music than ever and different types of music. Mm-hmm. But then the market is being so saturated. It's like, who at the end of the day is actually getting paid?
Imagine being with a label and paying your 0.004 cents to publishing.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
0.01 now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Thank you. 001.
And that's if you're getting a lot of your streams in, like, a North American country.
Yeah.
There's,
Right.
you know, if all your streams are coming from, like if for some reason one of my songs blows up in Singapore,
Yeah.
you know, those streams are worth less, you know.
Well, that's not good.
Which sucks, you know. It's just, you know.
I don't like that.
No,
Is that in conjunction to whatever the CRTC has set out in Canada?
I don't know what the actual legal relationship is, so I can't speak to that.
Like, speaking of, like, the CRTC, it's crazy how, like, when those bills came into place to really promote Canadian art, I think they were great. But now, because the market's so saturated,
mm-hmm.
and more just goes into the production of music, that some bands or some artists aren't even considered Canadian enough to receive those royalties anymore.
Yeah.
This is slightly on topic, but slightly off topic. But it's all that's going through my brain right now is that when that thing happened with the Killing in the Name and Rage Against the Machine, where they played it for 9 hours on a loop, all I was thinking is, oh, I wonder how much money they're paying in CRTC fees for that.
That's
the only thing I could think about.
That was what was the story there? It was like
it was a big publicity stunt at the end of the day.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a legit protest.
Me too. I thought that would have been so cool, but no, it was just PR.
Yeah. No, back on the thing of, like, we're living in a time where the market is so saturated that Canadian artists aren't even being considered Canadian anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if only there was an NFT that could...
Where's Miles to explain that one?
Well, that was I tried really hard to understand where NFTs and the blockchain were gonna help, and from what it seems, the theoretical sort of explanation of what's possible with that technology and keeping track of all that stuff, it would be cool, you know, the amount of restructuring of all of the laws surrounding royalties and, you know, it would be a lot easier if somebody takes my music and steals it and uses it, you know, in a movie or whatever, to hunt them down without, you know, some huge legal fees that I couldn't afford. You know, it'd be a lot easier to prove ownership of things like that. But it's like, that's not the problem we're having. And to your point about, you know, the CRTC and, you know, artists not being Canadian enough for their Canadian content, it's, I don't know, it feels like we're attacking the wrong root of the wrong problem in that case. It feels more like, like it would be cool if, you know, because I live in Canada and it's, you know, theoretically easiest for me to go on tour in Canada, you know, it would be cool if there were mechanisms in place to make sure that, you know, Canadian content gets shown to Canadians so they can go, oh, I like this. Oh, and he's from here? Cool. Then, you know, I will go to his show when he comes to town, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because we talked about how there's no gatekeeping in the local community, and then you have stuff like this nationally.
It's nationally, even provincially.
Yeah.
You know? And there's, in the local community where it's like, you know, person to person, there's no, like, I guess, bureaucracy between people. It's then the thing is we have all these barriers of royalty payments and all this and whether or not your stuff is going to get played on radio, because some people still discover all their music on radio. Some people still discover all their music in, sort of very niched down CBC, streams and stuff like that.
I gotta say, when Spotify recommended gets it right, though, it gets it right for me. That's how I do a lot of my music discovery.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. The machine learning on that is really cool. And if there was like a, this is where I put on my liberal hat, but it's like if there was a cool socialized version of the Spotify algorithm to that it's like I would gladly have some of my tax dollars support something that actually helped Canadian artists get discovered within Canada, you know.
Rather than deep pocket CEOs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rather than like the guy that owns all the radio stations and half the car dealerships in Canada.
Oh, totally. Jim Pattison.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
The big communication breakdown a few weeks back was almost eye-opening. Like the fact that we never really questioned the fact that all of us are more or less signed up with the big three when it comes to our cell service. And with the amount of people who were like, I'm switching over to Bell because I'm so tired of Rogers and this. I'm like, you're just signing up with the other person who owns a third of Canada's communication.
It doesn't matter who you're with. I wasn't affected by the Rogers outage, but I was still affected because people still had all their debit through Rogers. So even if you're personally not on Rogers, you were still dealing with it.
Yeah, it's like the king is dead, long lives the king. But there was a good TikTok I saw earlier today that was like, Mom, can you come pick me up? The grocery store oligopoly needs the banking oligopoly to process all the transactions, but the telecommunications oligopoly is down, so the banking oligopoly can't process the transactions, so the food oligopoly won't give me any food, and I'm really hungry. Can you come pick me up?
And then it keeps going on, and the chain continues.
Yeah, it's like, we've both traded a lot of our sort of control over the situation for convenience in the situation in some cases, and in other cases we've kind of let the convenience blind us from the fact that there's nobody else to help us when things go wrong.
I mean, this is all just going back to Spotify, mind you,
exactly,
right?
and all that leads, and that's exactly the same thing. I was right there with you. But
no, it's just like we went off on the little tangent about talking about different systems, but at the end of the day, it's just like, as much as you want to strike against them, I think it's also like, there literally is no other option.
Yeah.
Like, where else do you place your music if not on Spotify?
Yeah. ICBC has a monopoly, so you can't insure your car with anyone else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's a whole government provincial thing.
Yeah, totally.
But in the case of
same vein.
Yeah. In the case of like Spotify, it's like what my monthly listens on all platforms is Spotify. And then there's everybody else combined.
Yeah, truly. Yeah, for real.
And that's just the way it is, because they've built their business as they are the music provider. They're cross-platform, right? So it's like Apple's never going to be it because not everybody's on Apple. A lot of people are on Apple, but
they still choose Spotify.
Yeah, exactly. They still choose Spotify. Same thing with there's a lot.
We could get so deep and philosophical about how like people want to tear down the capitalism, and everyone's anti-capitalist in their own right, at least in our generation, I find.
Yeah.
Sure.
But these necessary evils,
Yeah.
as I've come to referring to Spotify, because yes, I still listen to my music there. Yes, I still publish my music there.
Yeah.
It's like you can make a stand, but as one person,
Yeah, it's
you
like
can't.
if Taylor Swift can't do it.
Yeah. Taylor Swift gave up.
Yeah.
She put her music back on Spotify.
The
for real.
biggest, I think, strike against Spotify, it was like way back. I say way back. It was really just 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was when Wolfpack just released
Yeah.
an album of just
Silence.
pure silence.
Yeah.
And I guess Spotify hadn't had any rules in place for repeated listening or multiple streams.
Yeah.
So they totally just gained the system and ended up getting so much money that they basically funded a full tour where they put on free concerts. And it's because of Wolfpack that they decided to come in and to create a policy in place about like multiple streams.
Yeah.
And now like your algorithm, like artist royalties are being totally fucked over.
Yeah.
Just for repeated listening.
Yeah.
There are days where my ADHD brain just wants to listen to one song.
Right.
Where I actually listen to one song for 8 hours straight.
Right.
Me too.
And the fact that like Spotify caught on to the fact that I'm listening to this song for 8 hours, but is only going to pay the artist like those 0.001 cents and then delete all their streams.
Wasn't there also some big deal a couple of years back where Justin Bieber was encouraging his fans to just like have his single on in the background on really low volume, and then they caught on to that too?
Yeah. Everybody's done something like that at some point. It's just like, here's an album to put on while you sleep, and it's 12 hours long, stuff like that. Ambient music and things like that for people, and it's kind of created this. Yeah, well, but at the same time, it's like, at that point, you've now distanced yourself so far away from where you started, which was, I'm going to make some art for people to enjoy. Yeah. And now you've got to, but if I want to do it with the kind of creative freedom that I want to do it with, I need a lot of people to give a shit and listen to it and pay attention, and we can do that for ourselves on a smaller scale, amongst our local communities, and I think still have a pretty good a pretty good go of things. Yeah. Part of the issue with Canada is it's widespread and all over the place, so it's kind of hard to do that for the entire country. So, I know there's music communities in Europe that because everything's so tightly knit and kind of like how it is here, they can you can go from one side of Europe to the other and make a living of it of just word of mouth.
Yeah. For real.
But it's we deal with a lot of unnecessary roadblocks, but and some roadblocks that are necessary based on unnecessary roadblocks, like the way I've talked about this on the podcast before, but just the way royalties are structured even before you get to streaming, like even up to like radio and CDs and all that stuff is based off of sheet music sales.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, it's a page one rewrite if we want to really help anybody. And
this is it's totally, you're totally right. Mm-hmm. And like that's actually the perfect segue to cycle it back to like why we wanted to do all this to begin with. Like why we wanted to do shows is because we know how shit streaming pays, and we know what artists get out of it, and we wanted to put together. We're still building the structure of this model, but like we wanted to build a model where we can book bands and they can make money.
It doesn't matter how much technology. I think I've been thinking about art and the role technology has been playing in it for a long time. Mm-hmm. I feel like no matter how much technology or how many modern processes you incorporate into the process of making art and the process of disseminating art, it always comes back to its traditional form, enjoying music in its live form. Yeah. Like, people thought live streaming would pick up. It didn't. People stopped giving a fuck and they wanted to go back to live shows. Yeah. And we have streaming really easy to just put music out there, but people still make money from playing a live show. And it just goes back to the fact that art is always just sort of meant to be consumed and enjoyed and profited off of its most traditional form, because people just keep going back to that original formula, And
I think that's why we do what we do, is like the reason we want to make sure bands get paid at shows is because I don't think musicians were born to be content creators. And that's what the world we've turned into, is that musicians are forced to be content creators in order to squeeze the living daylights out of these platforms for all the money that they can get out of streams in order to make ends meet. And it's exactly what you said about how the art should be about the art, not about the monetization of the art. So, like, where do we come together in the middle? Where can we find a way? Because all these big corporations aren't going to change overnight just because somebody said something.
I mean, it's crazy, even in the world that we're living, where like there's so many platforms to get discovered. It's always goes back to what I was talking about. You have to be in the right place at the right time to get discovered, to be seen, to be heard, right? It's funny how that never really changed in the music industry.
Yeah, there's just all these, like, it went from I Mr. A&R guy goes into a bar and sees a band and goes, oh, this room is packed full of people, you know, this must be a pretty good band, you know, and then listen to them and go, oh, this would work on the radio, and then start this whole process of developing an artist and then put them out. It went from this sort of long drawn out process to, I accidentally put a song on TikTok that now has 200 million views on it, and this record label scrambling to like get this person an image and get them out the door and try to, you know, rake in, you know, $100,000 from this person.
I mean, that's what more or less happened to Doja Cat. I mean, she was signed to a label before she got huge on TikTok in like 2019. Her label almost gave up on her, and then people like saw her in the right place at the right time and started listening to her music, and then her label like had just cut her, and they had just brought her back on because they saw her as the next big thing who's in the right place at the right time.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's what a world that we live in, though, that the right place and the right time is online sometimes these days.
Yeah, a lot of times. And it's,
people aren't necessarily born to be content creators. It's like if you want to be a musician playing music in a bar, like you were saying, then getting discovered in a bar is the way that the natural chain of events that people would expect. But no, it's like if you want to get discovered for playing your music, you don't go to the place where you play the music. You go to your phone.
You better have a videographer at the bar.
Exactly.
You know?
For real.
It's but now it's these sort of micro opportunities instead of this like life-changing potential opportunity with an A&R person. It's now you've proven that you can get millions of people's attention, you know. What else can you do now? You're right. It hasn't really changed, but it's become
more micro.
Yeah, bigger and smaller at the same time.
Bigger pool.
Yeah.
It was this bigger pool, bigger fish.
Yeah.
More eyes, but I don't know. It's just like I always think about how like things have changed so much in the last 20 years in terms of discoverability.
The last 5 years.
5 years even, and it just all goes down to the same thing. It's just like,
and yet the industry's still so saturated too.
It's a crazy world we're living in.
Yeah, you know, and I do a lot of work right now where I'm like setting up events and working with like old Road Dog techs and stuff like that, and they're all like, yeah man, it was just like, it used to be you just started a band and you just started playing shows and that was your job, you know, and that was it. that was you know, if you didn't suck, you know, that's what you did. And now it's closer to, you start a band and nothing happens, and then you like put some music out and you try to like come up with a package for the music for people, and motorcycle drives by. And then hopefully somebody likes the packaging enough to look inside, you know.
Totally.
And it's very, you know, it's a different headspace of coming into it, rather than just like, I like music, I'll make songs, I'll play the songs.
It sounds a lot about like how beauty influencers sometimes are like, oh yeah, and the packaging on this product was so cute. It's like, why do we care about the package? Why do I care that my concealer has this sparkly purple lid on it? Does it work?
But the thing, and I'm in full agreement of everything that's coming, that we're talking about here, is that sometimes, because there's so many artists in this market, it's just sort of like, sometimes you have to take a look at the packaging and assess like, okay, outside they look great, but what about their music? Right? Like, because there's so many options, and I hate talking about artists as if there's like options, but like when we're talking about a market and how saturated it is, it's sometimes like that the thing that looks the best is what my eye goes to, right? It's just like they're organized, their image is organized, and their music is organized, and it's like, we're living in a very superficial world, but I think it's hard to not like
there's so
much. Not to look past it. Yeah. There's so much.
There's so much. Sometimes it's hard to take a chance on every single artist on the playlist, you know?
And then, like, to play devil's advocate almost in a way, the people that don't necessarily have the nice packaging are the ones that are going to get passed by, and maybe they've got the talent. Like, maybe someone can't afford...
Maybe they've got the song.
Yeah, you know? Someone can't afford the home recording setup or the DSLR camera in order to make, like, a live off-the-floor video, or in the old days, you'd do a cover on YouTube and that would blow up. Like, the people that can't afford the fancy tech to make the fancy video get overlooked because people scroll past what doesn't look packaged.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, me too.
We're all guilty of it.
Keely and I were just talking about that before the show.
Totally.
But you know, and it's cool to know that I guess that there's folks like you two that are kind of looking out for everybody, you know, and like hoping to you know, spread a little bit of the good word of what's going on.
We attempt to take off our packaging bias glasses
when
we can.
When we can.
Yeah, well, and part of it is, you know, sometimes if you want to get further along, you got to play the game too, you know.
No, when it comes to building out a bill, we're guilty of it. Like having that, like, who's our opener? Who's our headliner? We fully take a look at what people are doing in terms of their career. So, like, we want people to come out to our shows. Right? So it's something as a promoter that you have to look at.
Yeah. We can't just pick somebody who we think that they're super talented, but they've got 20 followers on Instagram or whatever. It's like, I would absolutely love to, but by all means, that's not going to be my headliner for my first gig.
Of course
you
not.
Know?
Yeah, you know, and there's, but, you know, there's going to be an opportunity for everybody, so.
Totally. And I think the thing that was so great about Uptown Live was that we could present opportunities to people that didn't necessarily have to, like, have that pressure. Like, the thing about a festival setting is that there's no pressure to sell tickets. So you can give people the opportunity to be seen in that capacity without having to pressure them for ticket sales and pressure them to bring their own audience.
Right.
And, you know, that's my actual, like, going back to gripes and whatnot, is that, and festivals, since we're on the topic, is that how come we have so much outdoor space in Vancouver, so many limited venues? How's it that we have so much outdoor spaces that could be utilized for music, but we're not using them properly?
Because no one's letting anyone put the permits in place, and there's too much red tape for everything.
Yeah, that's in Vancouver, but in Surrey, if you were to go to Coquitlam or Surrey, cities they have totally different policies when it comes to sound.
Totally agree with you.
But yet the suburbs are completely looked down upon. These people go to Vancouver to experience music. They come to live in Vancouver.
That's where the culture is.
That's where the culture is. But then how is it that people who grew up in these communities don't try to create something within their own cities? Why aren't they doing the research to knowing how they could use that outdoor space? Like, the city of Surrey will actually just grant you a permit and free space and tell you what you need in order to produce a festival there for free. If it's free for entry, you have full compliance of the city to present any sort of music festival there utilizing any of their spaces.
That's rad.
I think that comes back to what we're trying to do again, too, because we want to focus on the suburbs and not just Vancouver with the shows that we're presenting. We're looking at venues outside of the big city in hopes that we can show city folk what shows can look like in surrounding neighborhoods.
Yeah, and we've also got a very like clogged up problem in Vancouver, you know, especially the closer you get to downtown, of people that live in like inherited single family homes that want suburban peace and quiet in the middle of a fucking like
downtown
one of the biggest, most dense populated cities in North America.
I mean, this goes for people living in the towers too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't want their peace to be disturbed, but also, you dumb fucking idiot. Why did you choose to live so close to Vancouver in a tower, and you file noise complaints? Like, why would you choose to make that decision?
Down like Cambie and Oak Street down there, it's like there's so many cool, beautiful places, you know, the further west you go, that are just entirely inaccessible.
You can't live above a nightclub and then make a noise complaint. That's not how this works.
I know people who are like, you know, like at the Fox, people living above the Fox who chose to live there, chose to sign a lease knowing where they're going to live, file noise complaints every night.
I have no empathy for that.
I have no empathy for that. No. I have no empathy for people who make noise complaints.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing if you're broke and you gotta find a place to live, and we all know how difficult that is around here. It's totally. Like, I need to live somewhere close by because I also can't afford a car, so I gotta pick my my zone.
Totally.
And that's one thing. It's another thing when you're just like, because it's also pretty friggin' expensive down at like Maine, where the Fox is. So it's like you might have more of a choice in where you're living than you think.
Yeah, exactly.
Mount Pleasant neighborhood.
Mount Pleasant. Yeah.
I think they're doing okay.
Exactly. I think they're doing okay. Yeah. And it was crazy to go to Toronto. I keep repping Toronto here, but it's a big city, and my flight had gotten into the city at some time around midnight. And the city was alive. There was music everywhere. And people are living in this giant downtown core. And they just have no issue with the fact that things are going on.
Right.
These are people who chose to live here. But then in Vancouver, you have people downtown try to make a peep.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, you're getting the police called on your event. And they're telling you, even though you're within your restrictions before 11 p.m., and they're telling you to
shut it down.
Shut it down.
Yeah. No, I had my good buddy Underduck spent the whole summer just going with a battery-powered speaker all summer and just going and playing wherever he could. And he would and there was his story every day for like the entire summer was like, I'm playing at Trout Lake. It's like, and then just like a VPD, like a half hour later, and then like, we're going to Kits Beach, and it's like VPD half hour later, like all like for an entire summer, and like,
ice cream truck's another great example.
Yeah, exactly. There's
and
all
it's just
kinds
sort of like, don't they have better things to do? Like, this is for...
Don't you have better things to police?
I know. Like, I mean, the busker laws are also atrocious out here. You can be a busker, but you can't have any amplification.
Right.
So how are you supposed to, like, sing and...
Crotchety old people, man.
We're talking into microphones right now, and a motorcycle driving by could destroy the entire podcast. Like it's just like
seriously,
with that much traffic and congestion and people walking by, it's like it's impossible.
See, this is what I mean by when I say Vancouver is a really small town. It's a small town in terms of like its size, but also people's thinking when it comes to art and culture, not creators, right? It's the people who are living here. They limit us so much because they try so much to maintain their own peace. And that's something that people should be doing, but also you chose to live here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you want bigger and better things for your city?
Why don't you come hang out with us?
Like, come hang out with us.
Stop being crotchety.
Yeah.
Like, come grab a beer and come listen to our music. Like, what's the worst we can do? Yeah. Musicians aren't going to do anything.
No.
We're harmless.
Nothing. We're harmless.
Yeah, exactly. And we're just as tired as you are. We'll be done by midnight, I promise.
Yeah, exactly.
Guaranteed.
We got to work in the morning too, It's I mean, it's a very sort of unique dichotomy I've found in Vancouver versus even living out in the suburbs, like you said, and it's a shame that we have to jump through all the rigmarole that we do, but at the same time, it also, there's a lot, it's why we have such a tight-knit community, at the same time.
There's no dog-eat-dog world in our community, that's for sure.
There can't be here.
No, it would destroy itself immediately,
Yeah.
Yeah, but, that's kind of a dour note to end this on, but,
AJ, tell a joke.
It was my birthday this weekend, and I'd like to thank you both for coming to my birthday.
Oh, it was
You're
great.
welcome.
Love the margaritas.
Yeah, my partner and I built a bar on our deck, and we ate a blizzard cake, and that was a much happier time than navigating the bureaucracy of the Vancouver music infrastructure.
Hey, we're all, like, just to end this on a positive note.
Yeah.
This is a happy note.
This is a happy note in the sense that, like, yes, it's very tough to be a creative out here. But again, it just goes back to the community that's already here. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to reach out to small indie promoters. Don't be afraid to reach out to other musicians in the city. Like yesterday was a really good example. We went to Brown's after Uptown, and our waiter happened to be someone who was looking to get into the music scene, and then he had introduced himself to Cheersey, and Cheersey, who's like somewhat very established in the city.
Yeah.
There's no somewhat about it. She's established. She's established.
Yeah. And she offered to co-write with this person who's just looking to start his career. And it just goes to show that, like...
She's amazing, man.
Yeah.
It just goes to show it's not just her, but it's with everyone. There's so many open arms and open hearts in this city. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's
unafraid to just go ahead and follow anybody, like, without even hearing their music first, too.
She's like,
I want to support.
Don't be a stranger.
Reach out, come hang out.
It's not as hard as it is to make friends, as people say here. Just, like, sometimes, like, you have to do the work sometimes and just reach out to people, and people will become your friends.
Yep. It's
an introvert's worst nightmare, but just do it.
It's a big scary wall, but it's worth hopping over.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Of course, yeah. And so Face the Music. That's you guys on Instagram.
Yeah, Face the Music ENT.
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 Yeah, and there's also. Locals Lounge are really awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Those folks. And there's
Root
a
Dwellers.
new one. Root Dwellers, yeah. What's the other one? Is it Boutique Music that is just kind of getting started?
With Travis and Boutique Music.
Yeah. All those folks, they're all, they're all in and around the community. They're all friends of ours.
Project Van City isn't a promoter, but they're another community opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. Sure. Everybody, and they do meetups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And, don't hesitate to reach out to me if you just want to talk about what you're doing, because that's all I want to do is just amplify whatever anybody's talking about.
Yeah.
So, it's come be our friends and
please
come hang out.
We love friends.
Yeah.
Like I said before, once I'm in your life, it's really hard to get rid of me.
Like the best parasite ever.
She static clings.
Yeah.
The best parasite.
Beautiful. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. Y'all
Thanks
are
for having
fantastic.
us.
And thanks for listening to Just an Aridonis podcast. Bye!